Good day everyone. So today we were gonna be discussing about applied ethics. And before we jump into the certain topic, I will just let you know the history and the background information about the proponent of the applied ethics. So as we know, the father of ethics is Socrates. Socrates, according to Encyclopedia, was a great scholar, a teacher, and a philosopher from western side of our world. So he was born in ancient Greece. His Socratic method laid the groundwork for Western systems of logic and philosophy. So applied ethics began to arise during the mid of 1960s and 1970s. So during that time, applied ethics journals and different philosophers proved that there are certain moral principles that are being discussed around the world. And to be specific, it involves the bioethics or the human life, the laws, political stuffs, and as well as the business stuffs. So, applied ethics had a complex interplay between scholarly publications, journalism, public outrage, legislation, and case law. During the 1970s and the 1980s, they saw the different publications of several books devoted to the philosophical treatments of various subjects in applied ethics. So many philosophers debunked it during that time, but as time passes by, they developed a certain textbooks regarding this topic, and they continued to enhance and to dig deeper onto the researches and the study of applied ethics. To be specific, applied ethics began to arise during the researches in biomedical institutions or biomedical researches and studies. And with that, philosophers had an idea to apply it also in the business world. So the development in applied ethics resulted to the connection or deeper connection between theories, moral principles, connection between different theories and decision-making processes, and then policy-making as well. And however, based on the retrospect, it appears that this connection and their problems were not well understood prior to the mid-1980s. Applied ethics is the most practical branch of ethics. It deals with ethical questions specific to practical fields. It includes bioethics, legal ethics, business ethics, and medical ethics. There are four branches of applied ethics, and the first of them is the bioethics. It is the study of typically controversial ethics brought about by advances in biology and medicine. It is also moral discernment as it relates to medical policy, practice, and research. It also includes the study of the more commonplace questions of values, which arise in primary care and other branches of medicine. Furthermore, the second branch of applied ethics is cyberethics, which deals with the study of ethics pertaining to computers, covering user behavior, and what computers are programmed to do. It also includes the effects of the computers to the individuals and society. For years, various governments have enacted regulations, while organizations have explained policies about cyber ethics. It covers up the laws pertaining to the cyber crimes that are happening around us. On the other hand, the third branch of applied ethics is environmental ethics, which deals with the study of philosophical discipline that considers the moral and ethical relationship of human beings to the environment. Human values become a factor when looking at environmental ethics because they are the things that are important to individuals that they then use to evaluate actions or events. Lastly, the fourth branch of applied ethics is the international ethics, which is an area of international relations theory which concerns the extent and scope of ethical obligations between states in an era of globalization. Realism, liberalism, and Marxism are ethical traditions that conceptually address moral issues
in international relations.
To move forward, let's tackle about the essential question for this certain topic. So the essential question will be, how do we take moral knowledge and how do we apply it as well in our daily lives or in any situations that we will encounter? So in talking about the application of ethics in our daily lives, the essential question regarding the topic will be, how do we take moral knowledge and how do we put it into practice? So according to Kreisman and Tyro, and in their 11th edition of the book Ethics, Practice, and Theory, there are 4 aspects on how we deal with moral principles or morality, to be specific. So first of all is the religious morality. Religious morality deals with a human relationship between his supreme being or his or her God. So in our real life scenario or in our real life, there are a lot of religions in our world, as we all know. And we have different perspectives on how we accept moral principles or morality in our lives. So an example for this will be the 10 Commandments of the Christians or the Roman Catholics. So there are 10 commandments that were set to us by the Bible, and we must follow it to achieve eternal life. So by violating these 10 commandments, we will have greatly break the code of ethics that were set to us by the church and the God as well, as the God that we believe in as well as Christians. And on the other hand, the second thing is the morality and nature. It is the relationship of human being to nature. And as we know, we need to protect our environment to avoid different calamities and to lessen the effects of those disasters that will come into our way. So an example for this morality and nature is the relationship of the primitive people in the world, around the world, or specifically here in the Philippines. They are said to believe that, or they are usually preaching the nature because it gives them the life as they believe in. And to protect the nature, they are avoiding to sell their properties, their lands to the urban institutions that will turn their lands into certain establishments like buildings, condominiums, and that's how they love their nature, because first of all, they have set the relationship between themselves and the nature when way back then or through their ancestors, especially that the environment that we live in will give us certain products that will help them to live and that will protect them into different natural disasters that will come in our way. So now, as the example, we have the problem regarding the climate change, and we know that if it rains, it floods. So if we plant more trees, we will certainly lessen the effect of the natural calamities like flood that will come into our place. The third one is the individual morality. So individual morality deals with the perspective of an individual on how he or she perceives morally good action or a bad action as well. It also involves a proper decision making and understanding the self as well. Without having interruptions between social social principles and social laws and religious laws, it is required to have an understanding or deeper understanding and relationship with yourself to understand what is morally good and what is morally right. So an example to gain this moral knowledge is by having a certain advocacy within yourself. So for example, I have the advocacy of helping the elderly people in crossing the streets, or that kind of instinct to help them. Then I think that it is morally right to help a certain person or certain individual to cross the street or help them cross the street, and I'll help them. And based on my perception, it is morally right to do that, so I will do it. But for others, they have different set of principles that, and they will come a time that they won't realize that that person who is in need of help badly needs it, and Another example for that is when I have the advocacy of recycling materials or recycling products to lessen the effects in the natural calamities or lessen the effects of climate change. Then I will do it because I think it is morally correct. But for the others, it is just like another thing, or it's not that serious. So it is based on the principles and the beliefs of a certain individual as well. So the fourth and last way to provide or get knowledge or moral knowledge specifically, we will discuss about the social morality. So according to the book, it is the most important part, or it is the most important way of gaining knowledge in morality, because as we all know, we need to interact and participate within a certain activity of a democratic country, for example here in the Philippines. So we need to socialize, to interact, and as a citizen of this free country, we need to express our opinions and participate in voting. So it is important to have social groups to fight for your advocacies, or to have support from different people to fight for your advocacy. So an example for this is when the Gabriel party list fight for their right to abort a baby. So in abortion, we need to tackle about the murder of the innocent child based on the other party list. So it is between the arguments of two different party lists. So it is important to have that social organization to know where are you coming from, and to have support in your perception on how do you take this moral issue. So for example, another example for this is when you have a certain dilemma in your country and you are part of an akbayan party list, and for you it is morally correct to fight for your freedom through rallies, but for others it is not acceptable because it is loud, it is scandalous, and we need, in this world, we need to have social interaction between one another to solve disputes between us. So we have to set certain agreements, and it is definitely normal to have these agreements, but at the end, it will, as a democratic country, it will always be based on our senators and the judiciary if we are going to pass a certain law. So as a reflection in the discussion of how we take or gain knowledge about moral principles and how we apply it in our real life, I realized that we need to respect one's opinion and one's perspective on how to be ethically right or morally good. And we don't need to disrespect others just because we have different perspectives. So it is based on our individuality on how we will take a certain decision or a certain plan on how we perceive morality in ourselves. And based on what I have learned in this discussion, it is important to be knowledgeable about the ethical beliefs of others, because we do not know if we will act on a certain situation if we encounter it suddenly and we don't have any plans on how we will take it or how we will act upon this situation. So it is really important to be knowledgeable about the code of ethics of others, and specifically based on religion and in different places as well. On the other hand, I have learned that it is very important to us to take partitions or to take part in our community. It is important to have social interactions with one another to learn about meaningful discussions and meaningful arguments between the society, and it will help us eventually to understand the different perception and the different beliefs in the morality of a person or a community as a whole. Applied ethics is the most practical branch of ethics. It deals with ethical questions specific to practical fields.